Hey guys, welcome back to the Puck Review. If you don't already know, my name is Jeremy Perigo, and today I'm going to be doing a book review on a book by Craig Custance, who now works for The Athletic Detroit, called Behind the Bench, Inside the Minds of Hockey's Greatest Coaches. And this is a book I picked up back in October, or shortly after when it came out. Don't exactly remember how I was first tuned into it online, but I found it and pretty much immediately got my first copy of it. And I was going into my senior year at Providence College and didn't really have much time to read a book, but found myself every time I got a free second or so picking up this book and reading something new from inside. And it starts off with a foreword by Sidney Crosby, a little validation there if anyone needs to be validated on the reputation of this book or reputation of Craig as an author if you're not familiar, or a writer if you're not familiar. I guess an author now too that has got a book out. And it goes into 10 of the greatest coaches of, I would say, the modern generation, in Dan Bylsma, Ron Wilson, Mike Babcock, Bob Hartley, Todd McClellan, Mike Sullivan, John Tortorella, Claude Julien, Joel Quenneville, Ken Hitchcock. So all these game names, if you're familiar with the NHL, if you're familiar with the hockey world in general, are names you're going to know. Maybe one of them is a coach of a team that you root for or something along those lines. And all these guys are very well respected in their own right. And basically what Craig does is he goes and interviews and sits down and watches a memorable championship, generally a championship game, of each of these 10 coaches and talks with them about the game and what they were thinking at that time, gets their insight to that game as it's going on. He only talks to one coach who actually lost the game, and that was Ron Wilson, because in 2010, USA and Team Canada played for the gold medal game in the Olympics, and Mike Babcock actually sits down with, as the coach of Team Canada at the time, and talks to him about the victory on the victory side of things, and talks with Ron Wilson about his loss as the head coach of Team USA. So that is one of the only exceptions in the book. Otherwise, they're all championship wins, whether that be a gold medal game or most of them are Stanley Cup victories. There's one world championship with Todd McClellan, and really great book. I highly recommend it. Not only because it's interesting perspective you get from these hockey coaches where you wouldn't necessarily see it anywhere else. You don't necessarily sit back and see what it's like to be a coach at that time. If you're John Tortorella in 2004, winning your first Stanley Cup, winning your only Stanley Cup thus far with the franchise that had never done it before in the Tampa Bay Lightning, bringing the Stanley Cup to Florida, the only time the Stanley Cup has ended up being awarded to a Floridian team. The Florida Panthers are still looking for their Stanley Cup. They came pretty close one year, but it's the only time that the Stanley Cup's ever been to Florida, and stuff along those lines. Mike Babcock is an incredibly inspirational guy, and I've learned that through reading this book. He's not only someone, if you're just into sports in general, or if you're into motivation and challenging yourself in life, that Mike Babcock is someone that has done that seemingly throughout his whole life, and gives a lot of valuable insight in this book into what it takes to do that as well. So I highly recommend it. If you're trying to just get into the NHL now, then it's something that you can do to familiarize yourself more with the history of the league. I found myself going and looking back at highlight videos. I mean, I remember the Blackhawks winning the Stanley Cup in 2010. I was only in my early teens at that point, so it was kind of a vague memory, but going back and seeing that, and I'm going to show my age a little bit by saying that, but going back and seeing that again, I had never really seen Tampa Bay Lightning win the Stanley Cup before, at least those final moments. My earliest memory is 2001 when the Colorado Avalanche won with Ray Bourque. That's only a vague memory for me too, and that's one of the things that I went back and looked at after I'd read this book. So if you're trying to learn more about the NHL, or if you're someone who's more of seasoned, like me, I consider myself a relatively well-versed person of the hockey world, and I still found things that really taught me a lot about this book. So I highly recommend it to anyone that's even newer returning fans, as a way of getting more information about the NHL. And again, it might be difficult to go back and watch or listen about Team USA losing to Team Canada in 2010 if you're someone who's really big supporter of Team USA. But again, you don't want to skip that section of Mike Babcock, because some of the stuff he says in this book are very valuable life information, not just as it pertains to the hockey world. So I highly recommend doing that, and I'm going to continue to do book reviews like this in the future. So if you like this one, hit subscribe. You can stay up to date with all my latest videos as they're coming out. Go to thepuckreview.com and you can check out all my podcast reviews, all my trusted journalist reviews, along with future book reviews, what I'm going to be doing up there as well. I'm going to put a link to the book in the description, so you can click on that to buy it online. I do have to say that's an affiliate link, so if you do click on it and buy the book on Amazon through that link, that I get a small compensation for it, which will allow me, it's no extra charge to you guys, but it will allow me to continue producing videos like this, and I highly appreciate that. So that would be great if you could do that, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks for joining me.